What if everything you've been taught about reality, consciousness, and your own power was designed to keep you small? And what if the key to breaking free wasn't something external at all, but something already within you waiting to be remembered? Welcome to the Enlightened Life Podcast, where we dive deep into the nature of consciousness, healing, and the unseen forces shaping our reality. I'm your host, Scott Allen, and today's guest is someone who has dedicated his life to helping others break free from conditioning, reclaim their sovereignty, and align with their true potential. Paul Quinton was born into a spiritual and psychic family, immersing him in esoteric wisdom from an early age. Over the years, he has honed his gift as a healer, teacher, channel, and writer, guided by spirit to assist humanity in its evolution. His groundbreaking alignment modality, insured in 45 countries, empowers individuals to unlock multidimensional aspects of their consciousness, facilitating deep healing and transformation with a no-nonsense approach to spirituality. Paul delivers clear, direct insights cutting through misinformation, to provide real, practical guidance. His upcoming channeled books will further amplify this mission, assisting humanity in navigating the transition into the new Earth's golden age, a time of profound awakening and self-realization. Paul believes that true enlightenment isn't about escaping the world, but learning to master it, aligning with higher wisdom while remaining deeply present. Paul, I'm thrilled to have you here. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. This is wonderful to be on. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I'd like to start with this. What does it truly mean to step into your sovereignty? And what is the first step for those who are listening and who are ready to reclaim this power?
Yeah. Okay. So let me sort of do a bit of a background around this and sort of show you to understand that, we are, there's a lot of unknowns, obviously, and Spirit have been very clear that, even navigating what we're going through now, they're not aware of a lot, because there is only the present moment. So what we're finding now is a lot of the old healing modalities are becoming redundant because they're based on the old Earth information. Now, the Aquarian Age officially kicked off the beginning of 2024. So we are 2 years into the 3-year trilogy of the grounding of this consciousness. So everything in these 3 years, and especially this year, the soul has come to its human self. And this is every human being, regardless if they listen or not. They said, we have to go within now. We have to shift this suffering. We have to shift the 3D matrix because we are moving into a new frequency. So even the atom is changing. So what's happening is you can't exist in that new frequency if you've still got the old Earth mentality. So claiming your sovereignty means taking back your power, but it means resolving the conditioned state. Now, what's happening is the subconscious is coming up on a global scale at the moment, on a micro, macro level. So we've got the Earth going through her shifts. She's a living being. We are Earth's consciousness. We are made of her materials. We're like trees. We're antennas. So we're feeling that. And what's happening now, you see in the Earth chakra, which is what we call the first chakra, actually is the anchor for the auric field. We work within 9 chakras, not the traditional 7 that you see everywhere. And so that Earth chakra is now stimulating. And what's happening is it's triggering a lot of despair and grief. This is why we've got another epidemic of lung issues at the moment, because COVID was there to represent denied, repressed grief on a collective level. Now, there's many things to COVID, but the frequency or the emotion was grief. People didn't listen. People didn't go into that deep self-inquiry. There was a little shuttle shade. So we've now got another wave of that. And even people in Australia at the moment, where it's 30, 40 degrees of heat, are getting colds and lung issues because it's happening all over the planet. So what we're seeing now is people are still denying their subconscious. They're still denying that soul presence. And this is what's triggering a lot of the illness and disease. So when we really talk about sovereignty, it's about really just surrendering, because the New Age movement has got us about this ascension talk and 5D and all this, but this is an outward projection. Spirit want us to reverse that. And they've been very, very clear that they say we have to be human. We have to ground here and awaken the soul consciously around us. So that's what the sovereignty is all about. It's actually grounding your power whilst in the human body. And this is how we were in all our light cycles. We were physically grounded, but we had connection to the non-physical. Now, the first port of call of non-physical is the soul, which is the feminine energy. Soul is a feminine energy. So, of course, we've been denying the feminine frequency for thousands of years. And because it's rebirthing itself now, It's saying, well, you have to understand your polarity. You have to take on that feminine frequency. Now, the soul is feminine, but we don't listen to it because we're conditioned human beings. And a lot of people aren't even aware of this. So that's that real journey of surrendering to the frequency, knowing that you're already perfect, you're already powerful, and all you need to do is surrender to it. So you've got all this energy, everyone is still outwards. There's still this masculine energy, like I've got to go out there, strive, struggle to get ahead. No, actually, it's all about receptivity now. So actually, you can do so much more work just sitting in your own home and meditating than going to all these places and courses and all this stuff, because the soul is there. It's always around you. So it's just surrendering to that frequency. And then it just opens up the next step. And as you stay in the present moment, you are owning your sovereignty because you are acknowledging universal law of what we're going through. I mean, I could talk about this for ages, so I probably expanded too much on that question.
Hey, it's interesting to me because you said soul is a feminine energy. How do we know that? And how do we understand? What does that mean for us? I mean, how do we use that information? I guess I
Yeah,
should
well,
say.
again, because obviously I channel, Spirit told me it's a feminine frequency. So I trust because I've been talking to him since I was 5. So that basically is it. But it makes sense because the soul is, you receive from your soul. Everything's about receptivity. So it makes sense that the soul comes through as a feminine consciousness. Okay. Now the feminine consciousness is also, the soul also births a lot of physical incarnations. So we don't talk about past lives. We talk about parallel lifetimes because there is only the present moment. So when you're doing past life healing, in many times you're actually talking to other aspects of your consciousness that are alive in other timelines, which are affecting this present moment. So you're all feeding into the one. So because the soul is a birther of human bodies and other bodies, multidimensional, I suppose that's where the feminine frequency comes from. But also, yeah, and the soul is a pioneer of many realms and dimensions, where the spirit is the sort of the higher form of consciousness, which is non-duality. So yeah, it can show various aspects in androgyny. So yeah.
Beautiful. So you grew up in a spiritual and psychic family. How do you think your early experiences shaped your understanding of energy, consciousness, and the unseen world that is around us?
Well, yeah. Well, I realized the illusion we were living in very, very quickly. I think it was, to be honest, I just understood that is what supports everything physical. You can't have a physical world without that reality. So everything, because we're just holograms here, we're projections of that energy. So the best thing was that I could always rely on that. I always knew that it was a safe place in a world with so much misinformation and uncertainty. And I also understood that spirit always watching over you. So I always had that sort of comfort. Now, it brought up a lot of fear because when I was very small and you're seeing a lot of spirit in the house, and you still have to process that. So, when we used to do seances, we would have spirit come in that have just been killed or were wandering or were freaking out. And you could feel their anxiety, their fear. So that was quite intense. But I sort of started to understand how it all sort of connects. And, it just sort of paved the way to understand that, there's a lot more to the physical world. And that was always I could always connect with that if I needed it and get real information or support or feel safe or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. And like some of us, we weren't taught that it's not real. It's your imagination. You would have been, I would think, embraced had you gone to your parents or your family who had these abilities themselves.
Absolutely.
They would have understood it, which I think is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your work emphasizes breaking free from conditioning. What are the most common societal programs that keep people stuck? How can they begin to deconstruct from them?
Well, first, we've got to get the ego mind out of the way. So we use a lot of universal laws. We've taken all sort of the hippie new age movement out of the alignment modality, and we teach it based on Dr. Emoto, Bruce Lipton, and Einstein. When you bring these three together, they bridge science and spirituality. And so what we're sort of saying is that the conditioning is around the societal programming, the ancestral energy. There's a little bit, obviously, the genetic line. And so we're talking about the first port of call really is getting the ego mind to let go of its control. Now, because the ego mind is in fear because it's conditioned, it doesn't understand. So this is why human beings need a linear timeline to explain their life. They need to know where they're going in 10 years. They need those goals because that's what keeps the ego from freaking out. But the soul and spirit don't work like that. They only work in the present moment. You can only receive in the present moment. So what Spirit trying to do is get people to move from a horizontal line to a vertical line and just be in that space. And so the greatest, suppression is the programming of misinformation. Now we work a lot with the shadow. There's a frequency, a 20 hertz low grade frequency that's been placed around the reptilian brain stem. That actually stops us from accessing stellar consciousness. It causes us to capitulate unconsciously to misinformation, and also it feeds us with despair and a lot of, like I said, the worst thing for the mind is not having the three brain parts connected. So we bypass that limbic part of the brain. So that stops us from going into the feeling and trusting our emotions. So that's the worst thing for people, is actually the neural pathways on a physical, but also not being given that emotional understanding and grounding. So the alignment modality really is just to get the ego mind out of the way. So the first module is all about the conscious mind. It's just getting it to relax. It's getting it to sort of get impressions of the non-physical. We ease into it so you trust the process. Because so many people can talk, and we can talk all about this is how it's worked. But until the person feels it and experiences it, they're not going to believe it, because the mind is always going to debunk, and it's very fickle. Right. So, and I've seen people have amazing psychic experiences. 3 days later, they denied it even happened, because their belief systems are so ingrained that they will deny actually what they did. It's amazing. I've seen some really bizarre things and how that conditioning. So really, it's about getting the mind to relax and to feel its omnipresent awareness around it. So we do a lot of exercises with energy just so you can feel it. And that's the sort of first port of call, getting people to uncondition themselves, as we say.
Right. You said too, the Spirit it's been your greatest teacher. What do you think is one of the most profound revelations you've received through channeling that changed your perspective on life?
Oh, so many. What's the most profound? I think when I was channeling and writing my book, just the information that was coming through, the stuff on the heart, the stuff on the brain, all the shadow stuff that they talked about, the truth around, vaccinations and all the misinformation that we've been told. But the most amazing thing was actually connecting with different beings, very shadow beings as well. Beings that have been here for a very long time, that have been sort of manipulating human consciousness. I've talked to the consciousness of emotions. That's a whole other energy. You've got all these different beings. I think it's just a collective of information. But I think the most profound for me was understanding how the soul works and how to surrender to that energy. Because when you master that and you really feel it, you do stop worrying. It just take the fear away, because you know that you're supported. You know you're not here alone. So I think the most profound thing is understanding how to connect properly, because there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. And, we've all followed those false pathways, listened to the wrong information, and, we've exhausted ourselves. But just the channeling in itself, like every time I channel, like the different information that comes through and the healing is amazing. And to be honest, the workshops and seeing the transformation with people, just getting them to be present and actually start to feel and allow something to open up within them, that has probably been the most beautiful thing. Then Spirit teaching me how to teach human beings to do that, but also myself. It just allowed that surrender process, because it just opens up everything. Now, depending on your soul contract, things can happen overnight, because when the soul is present, it gets rid of all the it gets rid of the ego mind's construct and says, no, you're not doing that. That job's not for you now. You've got to come out of this relationship. This is the way forward. So seeing those types of transformations is always, for me, the most profound and enriching. Yeah, definitely.
I love that. And you probably can understand this as well. I feel as though once someone truly trusts that they are supported and that they're there, things just happen. I mean, it becomes easy. I don't want to say life is easy, but things happen easily. You don't have to work as hard to follow the path that you're supposed to be on. It's like they paint arrows on the floor and you just have to follow. That's it. Everything will come to you. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, you literally take a step back and just watch it all sort of manifest in front of you. It's quite profound.
It really is amazing.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's one of the biggest things. And, I do some, development with people who are just opening up a little bit. And it's probably one of the more difficult things for people to grasp, but at the same time, it is the most beautiful, because once they get it changes, everything changes.
Yeah, like you said, once they get it, and it is hard initially, because you have to fight their ego sometimes, and You think they're listening, and it is a process, and you sort of really have to nurture that opening. But like you say, once they get it, it's like, wow, why didn't I do this 5 years ago? Sort of, it's like, yeah,
So true.
yeah,
Well, and I mean, from that perspective, I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole and think, maybe there was just something else to learn first
absolutely,
in the meantime.
absolutely,
And I feel like that. I know that's the case for
yeah.
me. I spent years getting ready for where I am right this moment.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. And we're only here for a millisecond. I mean, human beings don't live long to a lot of other beings. So really, we cram a lot in. You're just
So
evolving
true.
when you get older, and then you're out your body again. And it's like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
It's amazing. Can you tell us about the alignment modality?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So basically, it's again, it's channel modality. It's four modules. We generally have about 2.5, 3 months between each module for allow for integration and processing. So, just in a nutshell, it's a modality to awaken consciousness within the human being. Again, moving all the misinformation, providing the esoteric knowledge, bridging the science and the imagination for healing, and that allows us to just sort of simplify the process because human beings are too exhausted now. They don't want another full set of rules and procedures to awaken themselves. They just need a very quick, connection. So a lot of it's been simplified. So we really try to simplify things. We get people to go through channeling to connect with the non-physical. So spirit will come in. You'll start to have impressions of them. We do a lot of that connection work. The module 2 is very much around all the shadow components. So through all modules, you will face your shadow self, which is your own denied repressed trauma, your fear, your anger, your resentment, etc. But then the shadow components of religious programming, radioactivity in the body, in the cells. We do a lot of work with the atom to restructure the frequency around the atom because we're holding a lot of that Earth's dysfunction. That starts to remove. We work a lot with sacred geometry. We start to work with the hexagon, which is basically the foundation of the human body. So we create a foundation at the base so that when people transform, it naturally happens without any misalignment. So there's a lot to it, and spirit do a lot of this work anyway. But really, it's a journey of self-inquiry, really. It's a journey into understanding that you are already powerful, already brilliant. There's nowhere to go. You just need to stand still and just surrender to it. So it's a really sort of reverse to a lot of the other modalities out there. And I've done a lot of modalities. I've stripped them all back, and spirit said, just teach it this way. So we don't even work with belief systems anymore. We work with the emotional energy because the belief system and the emotion are created together. This is why a lot of New Year's resolutions don't work, because people are not removing the emotional energy that was created, the dysfunction in the first place. So what happens is it starts to come back. So we understand that working in observing through universal law, observing these emotions, and we sort of bring a bit of the quantum physics in to explain like the wave particle theory. And it's the same with emotions. If you observe them through that with that right intention, they will naturally let go because people are freaked out to go into their emotions. It's scary. We all know that. If people went into their emotions, the world would not be the way it is today. So, so really,
Yeah.
it's a 4-part journey. The 4th part can't be written because it's very subjective. It's your connection directly to the source energy, however you experience that through your narrative. It's quite profound. But you get activations, you get deep healing. Every module, we have psychic intuitive development. 4th module, I get people to start channeling, which is interesting. We do writing. And that's quite profound because they start to realize that they are actually channeling the higher consciousness. And also we talk about guides being aspects of your own consciousness that have come to assist you. So we really get away from projections outwards. Like, I need God, I need an ascending master, I need an angel. No, because as soon as you need them, you're disempowering yourself because you're already all of those beings. We're all connected. So what this is about relying on your own self, that own power, because it's very, very profound when people connect to that. And so, yeah, it's very much a deep dive into your own being. And then that opens all kinds of things up. It can open up the parallel lifetimes. We don't get into multidimensionality and all that. Sometimes it comes in, but it's too... People are just struggling just to get with their emotions. I just find that, so we really home in on healing that emotional body and the ancestral art, because the ancestral energy is very intense, especially now as this new earth has birthed itself. All the ancestors are coming. They're all hanging around everyone because they're trying to release themselves, that frequency. So it's been very interesting, the healing in the last 1.5 to 2 years. It's definitely changed a lot.
That's great. And I want to say too, for people who are listening, your modality is recognized in 45 countries. This isn't just something small that you started and you do it out of your house. I mean, this is taken off. People understand this and respect this.
Yeah, it's so basically it's accredited. It's patented, obviously, but it's accredited for the International Institute of Complementary Therapists. So they're an organization that's worldwide. So if you enjoy it, so basically they're recognized in all these countries. So I go through that frequency. But generally when I'm doing the workshop, I have at least 3 continents on each workshop, which is quite profound as well.
It is wonderful. And just for people too, in case they're wondering, this modality, can it help people with things that are not spiritual based, right? We talked about why people don't succeed at New Year's resolutions. And, what if someone wanted to lose weight, but the problem was in their mind or in their, their emotions and all this sort of thing? I mean, is this modality geared to help people with those types of things as well?
Absolutely. So yes, because ultimately we understand, and Spirit have been very, very clear that the physical body is perfect. It's just our belief systems, our emotions let it down. So anything like a weight issue, we would show them where the root cause and how to access that root cause is, and then allow that to shift itself. So yes, yeah. Yeah, no, it can be, like the Spirit said, it is for the man on the street. My book is very esoteric. It's not for the man on the street. It's for people that have got a bit more consciousness, understanding of it. But the alignment modality, yes, it is. Yeah, we do talk about the extrasensory stuff, but people don't have to access that if they don't want to. That's their choice in that moment. They will still have a profound experience by connecting to themselves. And then they will understand why they've got weight issues, why they've been abandoned, why they've been abused. And then we show them how to work through that. It's a very, very simple process. So yes, answering your question, yeah.
And can this be done virtually? Or, I mean, I would imagine, right?
It's
or
all
do you
online at
have
the moment. Yeah.
all online at the moment? Okay,
Yeah.
great. So if you're here in the US, so you're in Australia, we have listeners in Australia and all over the place. They can actually, and we're going to give all this information out. So I'll have your website and all of that in the comments. When you're watching this, you just look down in the comments and you'll find out how to reach Paul, but also how to get a hold of his courses and books and, all of that kind of thing. So that will be right there.
Yeah.
When people have, in general, I think, difficulty trusting their intuition. So what are some key ways people can strengthen their connection to their higher self? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah. So basically, I give everyone a soul exercise to do, which is a connection exercise. They have to practice that every day. What that does is it starts to ground the energy into the conscious being. So they start to have peripheral visions of energy moving. So basically, I start to see peripheral energy. Once they see that energy, they start to go, okay, there's something here, and it's a sort of trust process. So that's how we show them that that energy exists around them. So that's the first port of call. And also to trust is the excitement. So whenever you get excited or the chills on your skin, they are the 2 most common markers that Spirit will use to say this is real. Follow what you're thinking. So the chills on the skin is the meridian system lighting up. Now the meridian system is the first thing that gets manifested when the soul goes, I want to incarnate into that country. It will pick up the frequency of that country. That will get wired into the meridian system. Then what happens then? The heart starts to lay, then the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is the physical aspect of the subconscious. So that's in the hypothalamus is where we hold our subconscious. That's the physical component. So what that does, everything unresolved gets wired into the meridian system. So we actually have a lot of dysfunction in our meridian systems, but they actually feed the chakra system. And so, so we work with that sort of concept and allowing that sort of process to unfold naturally. Yeah, so it's an interesting thing. Yeah, sorry, come back to your question. What was the other part of the question? Sorry.
What are some ways that people can strengthen?
Yeah. Sorry, that's right. Yeah. So basically, it's that when the meridian system lights up, that's the connection to the non-physical. So your meridians will get touched, then you feel it through the body. And then the excitement is always soul energy. So when you get excited, do it because you know that there's no doubt. So excitement. So they're the 2 things that everyone will experience straight away. Then they build rapport with it. Now, depending on how far they want to go, there are other techniques that we can push them into to develop that frequency. But it's funny because once we go into the practical, even on module 1, day 1, as soon as they go in and do the practical in their pairs, their whole energy just melts. And then they pick up stuff and they're also blown away by their own psychic awareness. That in itself, that actual first night is quite profound for a lot of people because a lot of the times they never trusted what they're feeling or believing. But when they get feedback from a partner in that energetic setting, it actually triggers and it actually opens up the cells, it opens up the endorphins, it opens up the meridians, the chakras start opening, and it's that in itself is quite a breakthrough experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm sure. And, it's funny because people will say to me, I do platform mediumship. I also do a lot of private sessions as well. And people will say, well, how do you know? How do you know that you're talking to me over here and it's not right, but someone else is answering the same questions? If you're on a platform and you say, I have a gentleman here, and you give all the
All right.
details, you'll get 2 or 3 people raising their hand. How do you know it's not me and it's this person over here? And it is that system, because they will give me that feeling. What's your name? Mary. Okay, what's your name? June. Oh my God, June. And then I got it. You get the feeling, and I'm feeling it right now. It comes right down
Yeah.
your arms. It's as if they're saying to me, you're right, you're right, you're right. Keep going. That's the
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I know I'm right. And I can't explain it. But it is. I mean, that is how you explain it. But unless you do this work, you wouldn't necessarily understand what that is. But that's the
Yeah.
feeling. That's the sign.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing that a lot of people experience, but probably don't think about it. When you're walking down the street and someone maybe across the other side of the street are walking the other way, and you don't even see them peripherally, but you just turn and you lock eyes. Have you experienced that? That's the same
Right.
thing, because it's that sort of that energy connection's happening before you physically speak. Now, human beings speak from their sacral chakras before they physically speak. So so before I come to talk to you, I'm picking up all your energy in what's going on in your sacral chakra, and vice versa. So that generally, sometimes it's that quick. You don't even, you just know, you just sort of know, and you just lock eyes, and it's instant, isn't it? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You just
You just
know. But that's what was so difficult, at least for me, you know, learning to do this work. I mean, it's been there my whole life, but I wasn't fortunate enough to have parents. My father was an engineer, very
yeah,
science, it was something that was sort of shoved down over here. But to learn to trust that, and to know that that really was spirit talking to me, was a process. But once I did, everything just went woof,
yeah,
just like this. It just blew
yeah.
up. You know, when you talk about people on their first session, they're seeing energy. Are they seeing this with their mind's eye or their own
Physical eyes,
physical?
yeah. Generally, it'll always
That's
come in peripherally, not to stop to scare them. So
yeah,
you'll
yeah,
just
yeah.
get waves, or you'll get little white spots, or just a little freak, like a little wave past them. Or sometimes they feel it. They always pull my ear, and they always do stuff to me. But
Yeah.
it's like, but yeah, generally you will see peripheral, and then it's okay. That's fine, because then because obviously we're conditioned by religion, and the third eye is full of fear to open up to this. So that's a whole process as well. Just getting people to trust that and not freak out as well. So
Well, and you're not going to
no,
hell
exactly,
doing it. You
exactly.
know, I mean, I think that's a big thing with
Yeah,
religion, and not to go down the route of religion, but there's lots of, it doesn't matter what religion you're in. There are dogmas and teachings that people just accept on face value because it's
yeah,
faith, right? When we do this, we don't accept
yeah.
it.
No,
We're not ready to accept that. We have to teach ourselves to accept that. So I think you're 100% correct.
yeah.
100% correct. You have some channel books that are upcoming and will be guiding people into the renaissance of consciousness. Can you maybe share just a glimpse into their core message and what impact you hope they'll have with people who
Yeah,
read them?
so the second book I'm just about to start writing now. So the first book's actually with a literary agent now. So we are in the process of getting that out there. So just looking for a publisher at the moment. That book really is a lot of channeled messages. It talks about human consciousness, explains all the science, explains what's going on in our cells, what's going on in our meridian system. It talks about I put the last 3 chapters is heavily channel messages from different beings, because they explain how they've influenced us, how we're all connected. There's a lot of messages there from all different beings, but that's, again, it's an array of topics. But the main message really is basically how the alignment modality, the teachings, is based on. It's about that surrender process. It's showing people to think outside of the narrative, to expand their consciousness. Now, the good thing about the book, and this is great, because when I was writing it and when I was talking to Spirit, they said, look, the book, because it goes into algorithms. We talk about the 1 and 0. So we bring in that whole consciousness and how it works and how to reconnect. We talk about the brain and how that's reestablished itself, the atom, like everything I was explaining before. And so they explain that the book in itself is an activation. So the first person I gave the book to was my literary agent. So she read it, and about 2 days later, she rings me and she said, my God, everything that I've just read is now happening to me. And so the book itself is an activation. So just holding it, because it's a channel book and it comes through those frequencies. And I had to sit for 6 months every night at midnight just to connect and realign myself. So I was bringing all that pure consciousness through. So they went right into we talk about algorithm. We talk about the third heart, the heart chakra. We talk about the the divine genetics, how they're rebirthing themselves into human DNA now. And we talk about, yeah, it goes into DNA, obviously, the genetic function, the heart chakra, how it's playing out, all about the feminine. There's a lot of messages there from different beings, like I said, and just to assist us. It's the book of assistance, but like I said, it's in itself, it will trigger you if the intention is there to awaken.
Wonderful. What do you think is, I have my own feelings on this, but what do you think is the biggest misconception about spirituality and channeling that holds people back from accessing this on their own self, their own brain, their own power?
Yeah. Again, well, fear, obviously. But the main thing for people, that there's a lot of channelers out there that are channeling shadow beings or astral plane beings because they haven't done the clearing. So that can be a real issue. And that's why a lot of it gets debunked in our field, because a lot of people are a bit wary. Are they bringing the right information through? Have they got a different intention? Because there are some, people in our movement that are deliberately there triggering the wrong things, shall we say. And so it's really about making sure you really do have to sit with your soul and spirit and ask them to clear all of those miasms and all the things that we cannot see. Because don't forget, we are one aspect of ourselves. We're just one aspect. The soul splits into many incarnations. So those other lifetimes could be embroiled in all kinds of heaviness and shadow energies and other things that haven't processed. So if everything's affecting the present moment. So you may have to make sure that you're ready for it, that the soul wants to bring that information through. And then, like I said, we are all spiritual beings. We were spiritual before we're human. So it's really about just allowing yourself to awaken to that frequency naturally. You don't have to force anything. But if someone wanted to channel, I think that's where you're going with the question, they would need to sit in the evening, generally around midnight, or is the best time, because everything starts to slow down and the energy is better then. And just say, please clear me on a multi-level or multi-dimensional level of all miasms or anything that's blocking me from bringing clear communication in. Now, everyone has the ability to ask for that because we're all God. We're all brilliant. We're already perfect. We're already powerful. So everyone does. So you've got these conditioned human beings that are walking around just so stuck, so heavy, so fearful. But they're very, very powerful beings, like we all are. So we all have that ability, but we just got to surrender to it. But you do need to sit. You do need to sit because you don't want to bring the wrong information through. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And, you mentioned fear. I think fear is a major tool that is used to control people in many different ways, So how can someone move past that and shift to this mindset of empowerment and trust?
Well, from us, we would show them how to process fear naturally through those universal laws. So we'd have to clear the emotional body. The activations open up the subconscious and they open up parallel lifetimes. So what happens is all those energies start to merge into this present moment. That's how we do it on the workshop. If I was doing a one-on-one, I would get the person to bring up the fear and then I would get them to use their imagination. And when you observe something with an intention, depending on that intention, it will trigger itself. So emotional energy wants out of you just as much as you want it gone, because the intelligence of the emotions will talk directly with your soul. You can't trick your emotions because they're highly intelligent. There's consciousness behind it. I've channeled the emotional energy and it's an amazing conversation. Anyway, but when you observe the emotions with the intention to transform them, they will shift. So that fear, actually, when you take a person into their subconscious, you see fear scared itself. Fear is in fear because actually fear is now trying to get off the planet. Because we don't actually have to live in fear anymore. It's now a choice. People will go, well, how's that a choice? Well, that's the conditioning, right? It's the same as time. Time doesn't exist on this planet anymore. That's why a week feels like 3 days now, the old day. We are in that new frequency where everything's shifting. So fear, when you surrender to it, you see the love inside it because you understand that there's no such thing as good and evil. All there is light. And that when it decides to turn on itself, it faces its shadow. So when you understand that, it's just about turning back into the light. It's very, very, you have to take all those primordial concepts out. This is where the religious programming, the politicians have really messed us up because they planted that inadequacy in our cells. So most people's cells are unilateral within the frequency. This is what causes disease and disorder. Everything needs to oscillate. So we talk about oscillation, polarity, resonance. So when you've got oscillation moves through the universe, it allows particles and protons to move. It's the same as when a wave comes onto the shore. It comes in, it comes out. It's consciousness always in that. So we get this frequency moving. When you get that energy moving through the cell like that, it breaks the fear. It allows you to detach from it. When you detach, you can observe it. And when you observe it, it dissipates. So it's really a sort of structure using a bit of those universal laws, using a little bit of the science, using your will and intention. And you'll be surprised how quickly, because the fear wants out of you. Because the fear is a vibrational consciousness as well. It's like you and me, I'm talking to you. It doesn't want to be here anymore. It's exhausted as well. So when you understand that emotions are living entities, it takes on a very different frequency. And you start to, and the cosmic joke is that spirits say, whatever they tell you on earth, do the opposite and you'll be okay.
Well, I have to be honest. I thought you were just telling me that, like you and I, you're tired of being here. You don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And this interview, real quick, though, just it's funny, and you're very grounded, and you said you don't subscribe to any of this New Age lingo stuff, and why is it important to bring practical, no non-spirituality to people instead of just the feel-good stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. There's too many feel-good things out there, and we need to really get people in their shadow, because we don't want misinformation plaguing us any longer. Spirit said to me, the hardest thing for them is getting people to realize they're not who they think they are. This is a real issue for the non-physical at the moment, because they're trying to awaken people's consciousness in a very subtle way, but just simplify the process. So they said it's got to be no nonsense. It's got to be very, very clear. And they said, this is what, this is how you do it. Like I said, I'm trained in all kinds of modalities. I don't use any of them anymore. I just work with this one way, and it works, and it's simple. Because, like I said, if you try to take people on a whole journey now of going into self-inquiry, and you have to do 20 affirmations a day and all this and stuff, they're exhausted and their mind is going to get in the way. So really, it's about, we teach them to surrender their mind, and then they start to waken up naturally. So we're really putting that power back into the person, or awakening the power within them, so they have their own subjective journey. So even when, like Reiki, for example, you've got to draw the symbols this way. The same modality that you have to work this way. There's all these rules and procedures. I give people, and they say, how do I do it? I said, how do you want to do it? How do you feel like doing it? And as soon as you give them that choice that they can do it the way, that lights them up. It starts to empower them, because it says, I'm in control here, this free will, this power. And it really starts to open up in people. And so there's just a few things that you just sort of, we create a source, an energy around the workshop, and then people just naturally open. And like I said, to your question, they just want it simplified. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone's tired. And yeah, we know where the world is at. You don't even have to watch the news. You can just tune in and you talk to your neighbor, and the despair is at an all-time high now. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is awful. And in fact, I'm more about tuning out than tuning in these days.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I moved out of the city.
Yeah. You healthy, If you could leave our listeners today with one transformative insight that they can apply to their lives, what do you think that might be?
Well, surrender. I could say so many things, but just know that you're already perfect. You're already powerful. There's nowhere to ascend. You just need to surrender to your brilliance. You were born with it. You've got a soul contract. So I would say, and I'd be happy to share, and I can even send you the link and you can put it on your thing, the soul connection exercise. If you start with that, so many people have rang me and said, on days I don't do it, I have a very, very different day. It is amazing. It's, again, very, very simple. But what you're doing is you're setting the intention to surrender to that intelligence every day. So you're not getting up with your mind going, right, I need to do this, do that cognitive way. You're surrendering to something more expansive around you. So I would say that, you're, like I said, you just need to surrender to it. So you can do this at home. You don't need to go to India. You don't need to go and do ayahuasca. You can do all that stuff. Absolutely. It's your free will, but you don't need to do it. You can be at home and surrender to your brilliance. Very, very easy, because right now is the best time to go into self-inquiry, because everyone's shadow is coming up. That's why we've got so much war going on at the moment, because the macro shadow energy has to express, it has to be exposed. And so it's all about polarity. Yes, it's awful, horrible, but from a universal perspective, most planets go through this. It's just the universe. When you work in a free will zone, it's like that. So, it's also about just not playing in. What I will say is, and this is a golden nugget. Actually, this is good. Whenever you get triggered on the news, for example, the newspaper, you see a rape, you see a murder, you see a robbing, that's going to trigger anger in you. It's going to trigger fear in you. It's going to trigger sadness. Now, those are your emotions. So use the news, use to heal yourself, basically. It's the greatest healer because it will trigger all of your shadow responses. It's not about the story. As soon as you get triggered with that emotion, acknowledge that that's your sadness, regardless of what you're watching on the TV, because everything's magnetic. Everything's a mirror here. You cannot be abused if you don't have an abuse pattern. So instead of getting angry with the people that are abusing, you actually have to put your hand up. That's what Einstein says. If I wasn't inquisitive and put my hand up and go, why does that star move that way? I would never get my answers. Inquisitiveness breaks that unilateral energy, creates oscillation, and it provides the subconscious to open up, and then you can start to intuit your own ideas or your own frequency. So use the news. Everyone's going to get triggered at the moment. Whatever comes up with you, just close your eyes, thank the emotion. I always say just give it a shape or a color and observe it in your imagination, because as soon as you observe it, you've detached from it. So it's the observation that's very, very powerful. And just breathe into it. Just thank the emotion. You don't know where it comes from, but just know that that emotion is yours. So you can actually do a lot of healing just by watching the news. It's so ironic.
I love that. I love that. It's funny, Paul, because I have a newsletter. It's also called the Enlightened Life. And
oh yeah, I get your email. Yes, yeah.
yeah, and I've changed it. It was something else before, but I've changed it to sort of coincide with this. And I like that because I can not just do the podcast where I interview you, but I can also talk about it in a newsletter and how that can have a profound impact. And also it's another place for people to learn about what you do and to connect with you. Now that's not going to happen. I think this episode, when people are hearing it, it should be the very beginning of April. I think probably the first Thursday in April, I think, is when this is going to come out. I'll let you know that for sure. But what I'd love to do between now and then is trial your soul connections exercise, or, I'm going to go on your site and find something. That way, if people want to try this, I can also say, I did it. I've been doing it for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and this is what I experienced. And I would love that. And it's not just, hey, listen, look, I know I'm open to this stuff and I do readings and but I also, I'd love to do this stuff. I want to see what sort of impact it might have on me. I mean, I think everybody can learn from this and reap the benefits of that. So I would love to do that. And I'm going to check that out.
I'll send all that to you. Absolutely.
I will put it in the link as well so that people can also try it once they listen to this and where they can find out about, your alignment modality and so forth. So Paul, do you have any final thoughts before we finish up today that you'd like to leave with our guests?
No, just know that, look, if you look at the world stage now, it's tumultuous, it's painful, it's scary, but just know that that's a very natural part of what's going on. One thing Spirit did say to me a few years ago, they said, look, people are going to freak out at this time, which they are, but they said you have to have the darkest of dark before the lightest of light returns. So the polarity has to swing. So it's full swing now into the shadow. It's going to come back. If you can tune in through all the chaos, you will feel excited. You will feel the new earth birthing itself. And that feminine energy that's coming on the planet now is the most profound, unconditional love. But to access that, you've got to clear your emotional body. So my line of thought is just go into self-inquiry now. You'll be amazed. Look, you can heal 5, 6, 7 times faster right now this year if you do it compared to other years, because the consciousness is supporting it. If you put a call out from your heart that I'm had enough, I'm so exhausted, I'm so angry and annoyed at being fearful and stuck. If you feel that emotion, you put that call out, consciousness will connect with you instantly, and it will start opening up synchronicity. And the next day, you'll be hearing someone in the coffee shop, and they go, "Oh, I've just come back from this course, and oh my God, it was amazing. Oh, I just did my numerology. It explains my whole life." And you've got to follow that excitement. You've got to follow the signs. Spirit will put things. They'll play a song on the radio, and it's a message for you. Something on the TV, and you go, "Oh my God, they just spoke to me through the TV." They will walk through any narrative they can get your conscious to. So get excited about that. There is more here. So just don't worry about the chaos. That's a natural cycle that we all go through. This is way beyond the human. This is a universal construct. So trying to entangle yourself in it, get caught in it, just stay out of everyone's narrative this year is my best thing. Don't get caught in people's stories, because everyone's going to be triggering their victim, and the narcissism's going to come out because their soul is saying, look, you can't live like that anymore. So it's pushing that energy, and then they're gonna exploit that shadow energy. And so, good or bad, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. to just be aware that, less is more this year, and just try and help where you can, but work on yourself. Work on yourself, because the light moves through your cells. That's how we pass light on the planet. So when you work on yourself, next time you walk down the street and you've changed your vibration, the person walking past you, if they're ready for it, their cells are going to communicate that information. Then they're going to have a synchronistic moment the next day, the following week. That's how it's done. That's how we pass light of loss. It's very, very simple.
Well, I'm excited just talking to you. So I'm thinking people are gonna just love this. Paul, thank you so much for being here. And for those of you listening, if you're feeling called to step into your power, break free from conditioning and align with your true self, I encourage you to please visit Paul's website at www.alignmentmodality.com. Click on the website, watch the video explanations on the homepage, and explore the accredited teaching platform for the Alignment Modality by clicking on Courses. And while you're online, don't forget to check out my website at www.mediumscottallen.com. I'd love to meet you and help you along your journey towards enlightenment. Book a reading, attend one of my live events, or grab your copy of my new book, In the Presence of Light. And to everyone tuning in, thank you for being here, for seeking truth, and for expanding your awareness. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and continue your journey toward enlightenment. Until next time, stay aligned and keep living your best enlightened life. Till next time, thanks everyone.